Hey, it's Huck, and welcome to the first Ask Huck video of 2012. That's episode number 5 for those of you counting at home, where at the beginning of each month, I answer your questions. Now, for those of you who haven't watched any of the previous Ask Huck episodes, there's really only 2 things you need to know. 1, I welcome questions on all topics, and I promise to do my best to give an answer based on lessons learned from a lifetime of failure, underachievement, and a rather remarkable string of bad luck. 2, if you click on any of the usernames or questions featured in the video, a link will open up taking you to that YouTuber's most recent video or channel page. So, even if I totally screw up your life with my answer, you should get a few new viewers come your way. Today's first question comes from a user named JimmyJackWorlD, who asks, Huck, I feel like you were so young. Why? Well, Jimmy Jack, as the saying goes, you are as young as you feel. And while most of the time I feel like shit, one of the realities of getting older, especially if you happen to have kids, is that you tend to take life far too seriously. You get so obsessed with becoming a responsible parent that you forget what it was like to be a kid yourself. Now, I agree that it's important to set high goals for young people. At the same time, youth only comes once in life, and so you have to allow kids to be kids, to pursue their own interests and chase their own dreams. I think what may separate me from some other folks my own age is the idea that I would never allow life's responsibilities to deflect me from who I am and what I want to do. Now, some folks will say that I'm acting young and foolish. Well, I sure hope so. The truth is, I don't know a whole lot of folks my age who are truly happy, but I know a lot of young people who are. When you no longer have time to pursue your interests, or you feel compelled to give up those dreams, well, life suddenly becomes a whole lot less fun and a whole lot more like a chore. Well, I'm sorry, but life should be much more than a chore, regardless of what age you happen to be. Question number 2 comes from a user named Loostifer, who asks, Huck, which of your own videos is your favorite? Well, Loostifer, it really is hard to pick just one. It's sort of like how you view your own children. You know, you can't really pick a favorite. I like different videos I've posted for different reasons. I'm pleased with my very first video, Hi, I'm Huck, and another early one called Thank Yous and Mouse Mistakes, because I think they give a fair depiction of my sense of humor and my personality. Some of my other early favorites include Creepy Stalkers, Huck at 14, and Ugly Insults, partly because they allowed me to do a lot of on-location shooting and work with several of my friends. And I really enjoy these Ask Huck videos because it gives me a chance to interact a little bit more with all of you. But if I was really pressed and I had to pick a favorite, I guess I would pick my Clone with a Golden Voice videos. That 4-part series featured a lot of my friends, a lot of location shooting, and had a mix of both humor and some of the music that I've posted on this channel. Which brings us to question number 3, coming from LucysPerson. Now, Lucy writes that she's a senior in high school, and unlike other kids, she says, she's been homeschooled all her life. She says she can't really relate to other kids and the kind of stuff they talk about. She says, I am mature for my age, and so all the real friends I have are teachers and adults. I don't have a boyfriend and only seem to attract the losery type of guys. Does this make me a loser? Well, Lucy, a loser? No. Does it mean you're missing out on some normal teenage fun? I'd say probably yes. And as for maturity, YouTube gives ample evidence that you're probably a lot more mature than quite a few other kids your age, or even other adults. Which brings me to homeschooling. Like any other type of education, homeschooling has its pros and cons. One prominent criticism of homeschooling is that it deprives kids of social interaction with other kids their own age. This is a matter of some dispute, however. Homeschool associations claim that homeschoolers get plenty of social interaction, not just with kids, but with adults, making them well-rounded adults when they're through with their homeschooling experience. And they can point to impressive-sounding studies, often conducted by major universities, to back up their claims. The fact that many of these studies, however, are funded by homeschool associations, churches, and private colleges that have a big stake in promoting the homeschool alternative kind of does weaken their argument. And it is frankly rather hard to square those conclusions while making the simultaneous argument that homeschool associations often do, raising the fear in parents' mind of the peril and hazards of allowing their kids to associate with public school educated kids and all the rampant sexual behavior, lack of discipline, drug use, and even violence that may take place in that environment. On the other hand, those who most often criticize homeschooling for its lack of peer social interaction are often those who have the most to lose financially from seeing kids being homeschooled, namely public school administrators and teachers and their associations and unions. After all, they would very much like to see that state and federal money that follows every student back into their home school district. The truth is somewhere in between. Homeschool associations have done a much better job the last 5 or 10 years of trying to get kids more involved in outside activities, involved with other kids their own age. Independent studies seem to show that these are more effective in more metropolitan areas than they are in more rural districts. Some experiences tend to be more effective than others. After all, a field trip isn't much of an interactive event if you rush the kids to the event, tell them to shut up and pay attention while they're there, and then rush them back to their home base when it's over. Certain clubs, organizations, and sports leagues that involve not just homeschooled kids, but some public school children as well, seem to be the most effective. It sort of reminds me of one of the Republicans running for president this year, Rick Santorum. If you ever talk to him on issues that are largely in the mainstream, about climate change, about birth control, about the gay lifestyle, his views tend to be somewhat intolerant of other people's point of view. He doesn't even pretend to listen to what other people might have to say. Now, this isn't to say that you shouldn't hold firmly to your religiously based beliefs. That's entirely your right. What it does suggest, I think, is that there's a difference between homeschooled children who are so closely monitored to the associations that they develop as young people, that as they get older and they are exposed to the outside world, they can come across largely as if they were brought up in some type of cult, completely intolerant of other points of view and other perspectives. On the other hand, I've also been privileged to work with some very bright homeschooled students whose parents permitted them to get involved in one of their interests, which was community theater, where they were allowed to associate with kids from public schools all over the area. The result of that association outside the homeschool environment with other kids from different perspectives and backgrounds, I think produced real leaders. Kids that were not only bright and mature, but with a level of self-confidence that you don't normally see in a lot of students from whatever background. Unfortunately, I don't think that's always the case with a lot of homeschooled students. And so, as is so often the case, whether you're talking about homeschooled students or public school students, it really comes down to parenting. It just seems to me that being too restrictive and monitoring too closely what your kids do and who they associate with can have just as harmful effects as not monitoring them much at all. And it appears in your case, Lucy, perhaps steps weren't taken earlier on in your educational experience to provide you with a variety of activities in which you could be involved in. Or maybe you were. And the problem was that either the kids you came into contact with were either younger than you, so much less mature than you, or so few in number that you really didn't get all you could get out of those experiences. After all, you know, in a typical public school, most kids come into contact with hundreds, maybe even thousands of other kids. And still, out of all of those, they still only latch on to maybe one or two or at most three really good friends that they can trust and be close to. The good news is that now you have reached your senior year, a whole new world of opportunities awaits you. Don't you dare lower your standards, Lucy. The right guy and the right friends are going to come along. But your chances of finding them, and their chances of finding you, are going to be much greater depending on the decisions you make from now on. Hopefully, your maturity and self-confidence is something that your parents recognize in you as well, and will allow them to trust your judgment in helping to make some of the decisions you're going to be making now and in the near future. Anyway, I'm Huck. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next week.
HuckFit22, who should subscribe? Yeah, that's you.